Okay, that groovy time once again, Ttpfl. All right. What is it today? I think it's May 1st, 2025. Well, last weekend was a hell of a weekend for PFL football. It was the weekend of the underdog. The bottom four teams, Eagles FC, Prisons FC, 76 Phoenix, and Point Fortin. The first three pulled off great upsets. Point Fortin came close against EC Port of Spain and had a narrow loss late in the match. But what a weekend for the underdogs. It really had you on the edge of your seat if you like watching underdogs perform and upset the odds. Let's begin. On Friday, it was Central versus Sando. I was curious as to how the weekend before Sando beat Cali 5-0. Cali didn't look that bad. I had only seen Sando once or twice. Watching both teams play last weekend, I was able to understand why. Sando played a wonderful short passing game against Central. Central, one of the best teams in the country. There was a 10 or 15 minute span in the first half where Sando, they could barely touch them. It was a very competitive match. Both teams had their chances. Both teams had their misses. Both teams had their goalkeepers do a good job. John Paul Rochford, the star of the Central, and a team of good players. By his standards, he was largely invisible. 2 one-on-one chances with the keeper, he didn't do too well. And again, for most of the game, he just wasn't the John Paul Rochford that we've all come to know. Sando, a good all-round performance, a number of decent players. One guy that stood out for me was their right back, Jabari Henry. Strong, tough, physical defender. Really, really good defender. Can't find much about him on the internet, but a really, really good defender. Well, their Sando was holding their own and in injury time conceded a goal. Bullet going between the keeper's legs. It was a good job by Sando. It's unfortunate for them they had to concede so late, but this is what decides who gets in the top 3 and who does not. So for Central, they were lucky. They got away. They got the winner in injury time, and they beat Sando 1-0. I know whoever plays Sando for the rest of the season has a game on their hands. You better believe it. All right, next game was Defense Force versus Cali. Cali has been leaking goals. 5 goals. They lost 5-0 the weekend before to Sando and lost 5-1 on this occasion to Defense Force. Cali does not play that badly, but their finishing could be better and sometimes defensive lapses, which it sounds like I'm contradicting myself. But they're not being dominating in that they're getting chances at the other end. It's just up to them to play better football, finish better. There was a horrible defensive lapse when I think the defender's name is Austin, passed it back to the keeper, didn't do a good job, and that's how they got the first goal early on. It really left the keeper frustrated, At one point it was 2-0, and there was a fellow from the right, remember his name, Arthur. That's it. I remember. Why is it Arthur? Arthur from about 50, 60 feet out on the right, caught the keeper off his line. Great goal from distance, scored. To the Wave TV commentator, the man's name is Arthur, not Arthur. All right. I realize people in Trinidad mispronounce their own name, and there was a guy who's come to our neighborhood for years. He and we called him Arthur. Until many years later, I realized in hindsight his name was Arthur. If you went to school, the man's name is Arthur. All right, not Arthur, but Arthur, great goal from distance. Again, Cali needs to just improve their finishing and their defensive lapses. On Saturday, well, what a Saturday. First game at La Joquita, it was Police versus Eagles, followed by Prisons versus La Joquita Rangers. Well, Eagles is near the bottom of the table. The previous match, they beat what they call this team, Point Fortin 2-1. Point Fortin is bottom of the table. So what? Well, somebody forgot to tell Eagles they were there to lose. Eagles has been dominated early in the first half. They counter nothing but about a half a field of green space in front of them. And I told myself, Eagles will get their chance to counter. It's up to them to finish. Well, within seconds of me saying that, the guy shoots down the right, shoots it through Fonset's legs, 1-0. Then they get a penalty, 2-0. Then just at the half, Police gets a goal, 2-1. I said, Police will come back. This is Eagles. Again, somebody forget to tell Eagles they were there to lose. Second half begins, Eagles is leading 3-1. Well, I started to hold my head down. I thought, what is this? Police comes back 3-2. That's okay. And then it was late in the second half. There was a bit of a contentious goal. Police is maybe about 20, 30 feet outside the box. I would say about 20 feet outside the box on the right side. An Eagles player falls down. Police immediately shoots it to the far left, come up through the middle and score. Well, the Eagles player started to get on. The guy was down. Play should have been stopped. Now, it is the prerogative of the opposing team to stop if they wish. And as I understand the rule, as it was explained to me, the referee believed that player was not stopping play. And therefore, if he was not stopping the field of play, the game could go on until she, I believe it was a she, was the referee, decided to stop. And Eagles had to chill and take, and Eagles get kind of vexed. So it was 3-all. And I tell myself, Eagles does not have a fourth goal. This is Eagles, right? Again, somebody forget to tell Eagles this. At the beginning of injury time, bam, penalty 4-3 for Eagles. The Imps who scored the goal take off his shirt and started run up on gallery in front of the camera. Boss man, you have 6 minutes of injury time. This is police. They've already scored 3 goals. Well, within 2 minutes or less, police equalizes. The game finishes 4-all. A little bit of ruction between the players at the end because Eagles thought they had been hard done. An exhilarating game. A wonderful game. And it just goes to show you when you have a solid team and they take hold of their chances, you always have a chance. You always have it, especially good all-round players without necessarily a star. What the underdogs showed us today is indicative of what Leo Pinhacker said when he first saw the Trinidad Tobago team train. He said, I say this to you with respect. You can take 11 average players and make a great team. Well, what we had was, with respect, 11 average players, 1 or 2 above average, and they went up against the favourites and handled their business. For police, a guy I really liked. I mean, of course, we know the regular stars. Ex-Fatima boy Tyrese Bailey played really well. Midfielder, I believe. Eagles, a guy called Kadir Atiba, the number 15, played really well. Not a lot of info about him on the net, but a really nice player. He really stood out for Eagles. And a good all-round performance. Again, great game. Accelerating. Then the next game was Prisons versus La Hokita Rangers. Now, nothing wrong with this game. It was a good game. It was a nice game, but after the Eagles police thing, it was a little bit mundane, a little bit, anticlimactic. But again, Prisons has been on a good run. What happened here? Prisons played against La Hokita 1-0 down in the first half, they equalized. 2-1 down in the second half, they equalized. I always talk about Figuera and I talk about Jeremiah Vidal, but I would like to point out 2 defenders who had a very good game. Sion Thomas and Abdul Lezama. I like Thomas, big strong guy, distributes well. If my memory is serving me correctly, in their last 5 games, Prisons has lost only 1 game to Police 3-0. Again, let's test my memory. They beat Point 3-0, they beat Phoenix 3-0, they drew with Jablote 2-all, and they have just drawn with La Hokita Rangers 2-all. They lost to Police 3-0. They were down 1-0. They were in the game. They were handling themselves. They were competing. 2 silly defensive lapses late in the second half, and they lost 3-0. Not indicative of how competitive they were. I have not seen it on the news, but I've heard that they have a new coach. He's a Scotsman, ex-James Baird, ex-Youth International for Scotland. Claimed to fame as a coach is some very lower level teams you never heard of, including the British Virgin Islands women's team, and he was once goalkeeping coach for the Trinidad Tobago women's team. He brought up some players from the second tier team, and they've been that was Eagles, sorry. That's Eagles, not Prisons. Sorry. James Baird is with the Eagles team, sorry, get it mixed up. Anyway, Eagles has been doing better and Prisons has been doing better as well. Last 5 games, losing only 1 game. So as I said, I'm mixing up things. Sian Thomas and Abdul Lezama, very, very good job for Prisons. Okay, always talking about Figuera, always talking about Vidal, but these 2 guys were good, and again a good all-round effort by a Prisons team, which I hope to see make more upsets in the future. I just want to point out before I forget, last year Eagles and Phoenix had a fair share of upsets. Eagles were able to play at home, Prisons to a lesser degree. This year Eagles, their owner died before the season started. It must have affected them, and a place like Trinidad teams just full. Phoenix can't play at home, which has obviously affected them. And Prisons, they may not have the depth or star quality of the other teams, but something happened in the second half of the season. They have handled themselves quite well. Well, we go on to Sunday. It was Samoa Jablote versus Phoenix and Port of Spain versus Point Fortin Civic Center. Again, 2 teams that have been struggling at the bottom 4 of the table, Phoenix and Point Fortin. So you figured they weren't going to do that well. But let us begin with Samoa versus Phoenix. Phoenix handled themselves. Yes, Samoa had some good moments at goal. This boy Zoom Lewis and so on, but they couldn't put it away. And Phoenix had their moments. Phoenix were never thoroughly dominated. They had their moments, good all-round football. They were not overwhelmed. And late in the game, 84th minute, Phoenix comes down on the left, passes it back through the box, outside of the box, and in comes Trevin Caesar for what we call a good old-fashioned bullet from about 50 or 60 feet out, over the defenders. Maybe the goalkeeper was partially blinded. The scores. Great goal. Phoenix shocks Samoa 1-0. So Samoa has failed to win their last 2 games against unfancied opposition. Last game, 2-all draw. They had to come from behind versus Prisons. And now losing to Phoenix 1-0. And it's all about finishing. If you saw this game, it was all about finishing. So the last game now, it's AC Port of Spain versus Point 14 Civic Center. Point dead last. Point get beat up by so many people. I predicted a hammering for Point. I said at least 2 to 4 goals, and if Port of Spain didn't do that, they should get a Calput because it's Point. Somebody forget to tell these fellas they're supposed to roll over. Point did concede a goal early on, but ladies and gentlemen, in the 30th minute, Jabari Wilson on the right from us about 60 feet out hit what has to be one of the goals of this season. From about 60 feet out on the right, this guy shoots diagonally across the defense over them, swerving to the right, beats the keeper. Fantastic goal. It's 1-0 in the 30th minute. If you want to see this goal, go to the. I'll maybe try to put it in my comments below. But the Ttpfl Report is talking about Samoa Phoenix in their report. But right after the Samoa Phoenix game, they show the Port of Spain Point 14 game. So go find that on YouTube, and you will see this goal by Jabari Wilson. Really, really a fantastic goal. And Point hung in there. They had their moments, especially with a fella called Niles up on the left. Nice, skillful guy, works his way in. His passing and certainly his finishing has to improve. And all was going well for them until about the 85th minute. They conceded and they lost a competitive 2-1 game. I couldn't believe Point was doing this to AC Port of Spain, one of the best teams in the country. And tough luck for Point. Their last 2 losses, 2-1. It really was the weekend of the underdog. It was exhilarating, and Point could have capped off an incredible weekend. They just failed, but no shame in that loss to Point 410. I'm calling off players. Somebody I forgot to mention. With Samoa, we know about Zoom Lewis. We know about Sween. I just like to mention a midfielder by the name of Byron, 23, going on 24. Nice skill, plays well. You can see Byron getting a contract outside of Trinidad. Tyrese Bailey from Police ex-Fatima Boy, good player up front. You could see him getting a contract outside of Trinidad. So I just wanted to mention those names because we all know about the star boys: Joven Jones, Zoom Lewis, Sween, Kevin Olino. But I wanted to call off names you don't often hear who can certainly play some good football. So it was an amazing weekend of football. So we got some more football coming up this weekend. Let's take a look and see what's happening. Okay, on Friday, you got a doubleheader. It's Eagles versus Prisons and Rangers versus Samoa Jabluti. Now, Eagles Prisons, very interesting. Lower level teams on the standings, but they have been surprising people as of late. Prisons has been doing a wonderful job in the second half of the season. Eagles undefeated in the last 2 games, scored 4 goals against Police. Not many people can do that. Between you and me, I think Police made Eagles look a little better than they were by playing so high up and giving them all that space to counter. I think it's an interesting game. Again, it's about tactics and finishing. I think Prisons got the edge in this one, but I'm curious to see what happens. Eagles did beat Prisons 4-2 last time they met, but I think that was a different Prisons team. Prisons, has been handling their business with the likes of Police, Samoa, Jabluti, La Hokita Rangers. So let's see what happens. Give Prisons like this on job one. Next game, Rangers versus Samoa Jabluti. Well, most people would go to Samoa. A good side, usually better results, more consistent than the very anticlimactic and underperforming Rangers. But Samoa, their last 2 games, have not won. They struggled with Prisons, came from behind to draw 2-2, and they struggled with 76 Phoenix and lost 1-0. That has got to inspire Rangers. Rangers has to think they got a shot at this on their home ground. You can't blame them. So that's a nice Eastern derby right there at La Hokita. On Saturday, it's Phoenix versus Sando, Port of Spain versus Police. And normally, I would have gone with Sando. Sando played a wonderful game against Central, were unlucky to lose late in the game. But this is a Phoenix that did not allow themselves they get overwhelmed by Samoa Jabluti and 1-0. I think also Samoa has to take some blame for not finishing better. I'm going to give the edge to Sando in this one, but Phoenix has some bad mind. It's all about finishing. Had Samoa had done a better job, they wouldn't have lost that game. And then the next one is AC Port of Spain versus Police. On paper, a very good match. Both teams have their stars. Both teams have been doing well, but AC Port of Spain struggled with Point 14, the bottom team. And Police, they just face very unfancied Eagles, and Q4 conceded 4 goals. What's going to happen? They don't know who's going to show up. And this league is very, very unpredictable. Tempted to go DC Port of Spain, but can't really call that one. I really can't call that one. Sundays, Cali versus Point 46 Civic Center. If there's one game I think I could call, is this one. Cali playing well, but again, they're finishing and defensive lapses letting them down, but they play a good brand until it's time to finish. Point 14 never doing nothing much, and they come and shocked everyone against AC Port of Spain with a very, very sturdy, plucky performance. I don't think Point has it in them to win this one. I want to give Cali the edge, but what I know, what I know. And then you have Central versus Defense Force. Okay, number 1 versus number 2, Defense Force and Central. Again, two very good teams. Defense Force has shown their fallibility. They drew with La Hoqueta Rangers. They drew with AC Port of Spain in back-to-back games. Showing their aura of invincibility is not quite what we think it is. Central is not a bad team. So, Defense Force, they can be scored on. They don't have to win. Central struggled with Sandu. This could go anywhere. I could have gone anywhere when Defense Force played the AC Port of Spain. If force me, I'll go with Defense Force. And again, close the code. Every single game here is not an automatic prediction, with the exception of maybe Cali versus Point. And Point has shown that they have a little bad mind. Okay, this video is taking long. So I'm going to look at the table. We're going to just take a quick look and see where people stand and what's happening. And that should wrap this up. Alright, so let's take a look at this table. You got Defense Force versus Central. Defense Force way ahead of the pack, and if Central was to win this game this weekend, they're still going to be away down from Defense Force. You also got Phoenix versus Sandu, Port of Spain versus Police. That's a nice one. Whoever wins that one will probably shoot. It could be maintain 4th spot or shoot in the top 3. If it's Port of Spain, they'll be in 4th spot. They'll have a great chance of cracking the top 3. Remember, they may play that defaulted game against Central, which would really cement them in the top 3. So this, again, Police and Port of Spain, everything to play for on the weekend. If you look at 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, there's no guaranteed win for these teams. They could draw or lose. And if you look at Sandu, who is presently in 6th spot. Sandu, they got to go up against Phoenix. They could win that. And if they win that, they're nicely positioned to crack the top 4 and maybe top 3, because they just got to keep winning more than they lose. And they got enough games to do it. It's going to be very interesting simply because there are surprises taking place. The lesser teams are not capitulating. Eagles, Prisons, Phoenix, they're winning when they're not supposed to win. They're drawing when they're not supposed to draw. If Samoa had won their game against Phoenix, which they should have because they threw away, they'd be on 34 points. Look at that table. Alright, if Police had won their game and not drawn, they'd be on 31 points. Look at that table. Alright, AC Port of Spain got away. They got a late winner. And Central got away. They got a late winner. So this is a competitive table. It's a competitive league. And the next couple of games, I believe there's 6 games left. It's going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to upsets. I'm looking forward to draws, which makes the top 5 even more interesting because everybody wants to be in the top 3. And I'm looking forward to the guys at the bottom with more upsets. Poor Prisons, they're playing well. I don't see them doing better than 8th spot. I was wrong. I said Point was bottom. Point is not at the bottom of the table. It's Eagles FC. Eagles undefeated in the last 2 games. Points being beaten in the last 2 games. That's Point is still ahead of Eagles. 76 Phoenix, feel a little sorry for them. They can't play at home. But they had a wonderful win against Samoa. So it's going to be a very interesting weekend. And lots of ruction, lots of pressure for the people from 2nd to 5th spot. Okay, so that's it. Again, if you're in the area, it's a wonderful league. It's a lot of upsets, quality players. Go down to your local football field, be it in the east, south, west, or north, and support the Ttpfl. Let the PFL make some money. Let the clubs and players make some money. I just want to mention Wave TV again. Why? Wave TV had a problem with YouTube. I couldn't show any games last weekend. Something misunderstanding about copyright, which was resolved. But in the meantime, did Wave just say no football today? Not at all. We went to Facebook, showed our live feed. Those fellas brought the football an hour early. I believe this was Sunday's game. You'll have to forgive me if I got the game wrong. But I'm pretty sure it was Sunday's game. And there it was. They're showing the game. And as I was told, it was a better feed than YouTube, less sticking. But then we did see some sticking. Why? Apparently, if I understand the explanation correctly, because the game started an hour early without telling anybody anything, what they paid for, the uptime they paid for right now, they had to go back and make a quick payment and then come back again. And they had to do it twice. Wave TV could have said, look, these people started an hour early on YouTube, temporarily block us. No football today, but they didn't do that. Despite a lack of advertising, Wave TV continues to show a commitment to TNT football. And for the fans like me, it's a godsend. I say God bless you. Thank you. Don't know where you get any money. I thank you. Ttpfl, you continue not to recognize this, to continue not to even mention that Wave TV is showing your football. TTT is there, I think, every game, and they show a little 2-minute report on the news. TTT is yet to bring a game live. I'm not blaming any other TV station. This is a business. But geez, man, look what Wave TV is doing for you all. You can have the good manners to mention it. Anyway, again, wonderful football. God bless Trinidad Tobago. God bless Wave TV. God bless the TTPFL. God bless me.